Patrick McWhorter. I'm going to choose to pronounce it that way.
Horner, like whip.
Yeah, like
Cool Whip.
It's
Yes,
Cool Whip,
exactly.
but it's cool and then it's whip.
Waluigi.
Oh my god.
Not everything's about Waluigi.
Hello and welcome to Maester Monthly, your favorite pseudo-monthly podcast hosted by the moderators of the Song of Ice and Fire subreddit. Now, before we begin, this podcast is, as always, spoilers extended, which means that material from the Winds of Winter sample chapters and Game of Thrones TV show is fair game. You have been warned. I am one of your hosts, Michael, better known as Bookshelfstud.
And I am another one of your hosts, Eliana. You might know me as Glass Table Girl.
And I'm another one of your hosts, Matt, also known as JoeMagician.
And I'm frequent guest Fat Walda, also known as Walda. Wah!
Thank you.
Mamma mia.
Now, in January, we were fortunate enough to add, rack 'em up, 5 new moderators to the mod team. We hope to have as many of them on the cast as possible, maybe all at once. Maybe someday we'll get all 37 human moderators on this podcast. But today we are blessed with the presence of an individual whose name we have spoken before. That's right. It's Nintendo Entertainment System Tony 710 himself. Say hi, buddy.
Hello. Happy to be here. I'm Tony Jones, better known as Jones Tony 710. But my real name is Andy. Don't ask about Tony Jones. It's like a John Doe, I guess. But now here we are, moderating a Song of Ice and Fire subreddit, and happy to be here for this first Maester Monthly.
Yeah, we do some moderating, like, I don't know, every once in a while.
I haven't even read the books.
What are we talking about again?
None of us have read the books. We've established that on this cast.
Jeff can't even read.
Yeah.
That's why he doesn't get invited back.
It's amazing he does a reread cast on something he's never read.
Yeah.
Like peak
truly.
Jeffing.
Super impressive.
That's what Spark Notes are for.
They have an amazing social media presence.
Yeah.
I will not let that go. If you guys have not checked out the Spark Notes Twitter or Instagram, they are on their game.
That's awesome. I mean, Maester Monthly, sponsored by Spark Notes. You can go to sparknotes.com and plug in Maester Monthly as a promo code.
Do people buy those?
You get Sparks Notes on wildcards only.
That's right. I found a Wildcards Volume 1 first edition in a thrift store the other day, for the record. Anyway, but we're getting off topic already. Now, we've got a lot to talk about today. We are celebrating the best posts of 2018, which coincidentally means that this is our 2-year podcast anniversary. Our first episode was the best of 2016. So, you know, toot toot, hooray.
We're a toddler.
We are in the terrible twos.
We're entering our difficult phase.
Terrific twos.
Terrific twos. But before we get into all of that, all the best posts of the year, we do want to highlight a couple YouTube comments that we got between now and the last recording. First, and probably most importantly, Eliana, it's been a frequent hobby horse of yours that we don't have the hours of the day in A Song of Ice and Fire. We have the hour of the wolf, and the hour of the bat, I think.
We have those. We have the Hour of Ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There are quite a few named hours, but thankfully we have good old Thunderclap here to school us on some of the other hours. I'm not convinced that these are all the hours because, you know, there has to be 24. There must be another and another and another.
Wait, but do there have to be 24 hours in a Westerosi day?
I guess they could measure them differently.
Or they could be shorter. Or longer.
They could be shorter or longer, but just because George is all like, yes, a year is the same amount of time, I just assume, but the days could be, I guess. Their metric of time measurement could be different, but I'm just assuming George actually didn't think that part through.
And
I feel like he's been asked it before. I'm not positive, but I feel like I've seen it in an SSM where he's addressed it.
The length of hours in Westeros?
Yeah, I thought that. I feel like it's been a question he's asked. I'm not positive, but because I think that's come up before. Like you'll see that, and someone will have linked to it or something. Or then again, I could just be confusing it with Wurthead and just taking his word for gospel.
I mean,
Which we've all done.
yeah, we've all been there.
I mean, I know that he's definitely addressed the question of the length of the year, especially as people are like, how do they measure a year in Westeros when they don't have 4 seasons? And it's like, dog, like, there's a bunch of places in the world that don't have 4 seasons, and they measure the year just fine by the things in the sky.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Little we know, that's a direct quote from George. He said dog.
Yeah. dog, shut the fuck up. No, but Thunderclap has given us 24 hours here.
Yes.
Proposed 24 hours, which include some highlights. Is 5 p.m. is the hour of the hammer. Why? Don't know.
It's hammer time.
Oh.
I think I wanna believe that is what Thunderclap is saying.
Okay. Yeah. All right. 7 a.m. is the hour of the pig, which feels kind of right. I don't know. I feel like he's tapped into something there.
Like bacon and like Canadian.
I was thinking
bacon.
more that like I always feel like a swine at about 7 a.m. Like I just feel like a terrible, dirty person who's like not ready for the world.
That sounds like a personal problem.
This is intimate. There are even things that have a renaming, like they've decided that 12 a.m. is the hour of the dragon, which was formerly the eagle.
Yeah, I don't remember that from the books. Was that actually an eagle?
No, I think this is a lot of these are not from the books.
Yeah.
I think these are from their own
Brain.
sure. I was gonna say their own, like they're coming up with a headcanon around it.
Right.
Yeah.
Their own genesis. Yeah. Well, so yeah. Anyway, thank you, Thunderclap, for laying out this very convenient. Fanfic authors the world over are forever indebted to you for the hour of the turtle. 4 p.m.'s the hour of the poppy, because I think that's supposed to be like a 420 joke. Like you're getting,
I like that.
you know.
And I like how they snuck in a turtle. George would love that.
Yeah. And plus, I feel like I'm, at 3 p.m., you're kind of turtle-ish, you're slowing down.
Yeah.
You're like, losing my pace.
That is how I feel.
Yeah. Hour of the Stranger. Is that one actually from the books? It might be.
On the wiki, it has bat, eel, ghost, owl, wolf, nightingale.
Nightingale.
Oh. If that nightingale don't sing, Thunderclap's gonna... I was really hoping I was going to finish that sentence. I was really hoping I had like a rhyme coming or something. Thunderclap also, by the way, is the one who first identified, Matt, your noise that you made last episode. Can you throw that back to us, that noise?
Hey, let me see if I can find it in my brain. By the way, the noise itself, I didn't know what it was. I just sort of made it up, but it turns out it's directly from South Park the movie. It's the sound that the secret agent kid gives when like things are going bad or something like that. It's supposed to be the sound of a giraffe dying, although I said it was the sound of Aegon the Conqueror orgasming, and it goes
That's
like
right.
wah wah.
That is what it was. That is the sound that you indeed made.
I had no idea what it was, and someone pulled that out of their memory. It's like, that's from
Yep.
South Park the movie. I'm like, I haven't seen that movie in like 15 years. Yeah, you're right.
It's deep in your subconscious.
Yeah.
Just as a weird coming noise.
Ooh. Okay.
Wah! That feels vulgar.
It does. It
Wah!
does.
We're already at like 6 wahs, and we've barely started this podcast. So
Oh, do you think that's Waluigi's instead? Maybe I was channeling Waluigi.
Wah!
Oh wow!
Now I can never hear that the same way in any Mario game.
maybe playing Mario Kart and just picture like Aegon the Conqueror, Ted Danson's eyes rolling back in his head.
Like the tennis game where he goes like, wah! I'm like, oh no, Waluigi.
Wow, that's this. Is this even like a Song of Ice and Fire podcast anymore?
It's usually
it?
not about
Can
a Song
we-
of Ice and Fire.
I'm taking this over. This is a Waluigi podcast now.
I'm totally
This
cool with
is
that.
the winds of Waluigi.
Waluigi.
Yes.
Waluigi. Oh,
Waluigi
man.
would definitely be afraid too.
I feel like he's more of a Euron type.
Oh, really?
Just like Eldritch.
Yeah, I think he's an Eldritch Mario character.
Eldritch Mario
Wow.
character. Wow. Waluigi, maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Waluigi?
There's something dark about him.
Waluigi, if you're listening to this, please write in.
Tell us what you are.
Yes. Oh, gosh. Please do. I really like the idea of Waluigi Frey, though. Now, speaking of YouTube comments, Jacqueline Hemmings commented on episode 2. She commented on episode 2, The Citadel. So that was 2 years ago, almost, at this
Wow.
point. And said, we must have been talking about this in that episode, I don't remember, but she said, were Tywin and Pycelle lovers? Oh, thank you very much. Now I can't get that image out of my head. So, can we get a consensus, guys? Is that canon?
Yeah, we've
Tywin?
discussed this Tywin extensively.
Why do you think that underground tunnel was built?
Yeah.
There was a secret one going right to Pycelle.
Yeah.
This is one of my more wholesome ships, I will say.
What's her name? Pycelle? Pywin?
Pywin. Yeah.
Pywin? Yeah.
They meet
Hashtag
during
Pywin.
they meet during the War of the Nine Penny Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Grow to love one another.
That weekend
Maybe
on Fair
Tywin
Isle.
gets 6.
You guys can't see this, dear listener, but Waluigi is just looking into the camera like, what?
I think she actually froze.
Oh, well, earlier
shit.
she was looking into the camera like, what is happening?
She definitely
Oh no,
froze.
we crashed her computer by talking
Oh,
about
With all the Pywin
Waluigi.
talk.
Yeah, so just so all listeners know, yes, Pywin is canon according to us. Absolutely, that's a big part of our Maester Monthly canon. There's one more comment to highlight, which was on the last episode. Throw deuces to death. Ian Conway said, "Oh yeah, I just did the dance of." I just aw backwards is wah.
Yeah,
So,
it is. See?
Wow.
Ian says, I just did the dance of joy, and my wife called me a true nerd while shaking her head. And I wanted to personally invite Ian to send us a video of them doing the dance of joy. Is that something all my co-hosts are amenable to, or
Sure, I would
Very
also
much.
like to see Ian's wife shaking her head in response. I want the whole experience.
I have some conditions on it.
okay?
They need to put some like dubstep behind it, like some real bad dubstep while they're dancing, and also be fully clothed. That's what I care about.
Are you saying that we sound like bad dubstep? Because
I
I assume
mean-
he's doing the dance of joy to our dulcet tones.
I actually now I want somebody to like remix all of us making like random noises into like a terrible dubstep song.
Or a good
Wow,
one.
wow,
They
wow,
could
wow,
make it
wow.
a good one too. I'm fine with that.
Imagine if like that track reached the top of the charts and it's just us.
Oh, it's gonna. Yeah. As we do every year on the subreddit, we held a Best Ofs award, and many users won many Reddit credits. There's like platinum and silver and stuff now, right? There's all sorts of. I don't actually understand it very well.
I don't know how that shit works.
Me neither.
Yeah, we should maybe we should have gotten the expert on. Jen Snow is really the driving force behind the Best Ofs. She does an amazing job every year. So big shout out to Jen. But there are 3 tiers of awards. Tier 1 was awarded some big amount of credits. Tier 2 awarded slightly less. Tier 3 awarded the least. But they're all great awards. So Tier 1 awards that we presented the first and second place winners. Tier 2, just the first place winners. Tier 3, just the first place. So we're going to go through these tiers. We're going to talk about the best posts of the year, and we're going to start with the best character analysis category, which is a Tier 1 award. And the winner was No Mercy and No Empty Threats, Kingslayer's Choice in the Winds of Winter by user Bale Bard, which we actually talked about on the last episode, episode 17, Throw Deuces to Death. So we're not gonna talk about it today, because you can hear us talk about it for longer over there. But second place in best character analysis went to Jon Snow. His is the Song of Ice and Fire by user I Am Heathen King, also known as Heathen King on Twitter. And this was one of Heathen King's many posts analyzing Jon Snow. He's written several of these.
I read it and I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to be writing my own John analysis now.
Now that's a rave review right there. I mean, it's a really in-depth post on sort of the real character side of John. I mean, he does speak to a little bit the character arc, the hero's journey elements, some of the more archetypical things. Obviously, comparisons to every single famous hero in every book ever. But really is getting into John's character in a way that I think some people tend to really hew closer to the theorizing side. But this is real. There's a reason it won Best Character Analysis, and it's because it really gets us into John's head comprehensively. There's one great portion later in the essay where he writes about how Gurm, it's almost as if he created Theon Greyjoy because he wanted to see the opposite of Jon Snow. And I think that's a really astute observation and one that holds up pretty well, especially given the show showing the two of them butting heads. So yeah, this is a comprehensive Jon Snow take here. I don't know what y'all's experience with it was.
There's quite a bit in here as well, speaking of things that have influenced George R. R. Martin and, you know, what George is reacting to. Heathen King talks a lot about how Jon Snow is the Aragorn of the story and dissects Jon's character as that very heroic, as you were saying, archetype. I edited this out. I didn't read Lord of the Rings, so that's the most I can get you out of this.
I think you said before you have not read it.
I know, but I'm not trying to remind everyone that I'm a fucking, idiot.
Eliana hasn't read it, guys.
Neither have I.
Oh.
Or
me either.
Y'all are
What the hell?
outnumbered.
I've read Hobbit and Fellowship, but I haven't done the other two yet.
I've only
There we
read
go.
Most of the way there.
I only read sci-fi.
Well, that's why
fair.
you're reading A Song of Ice and Fire.
Oh god, damn it.
Lord of the Rings to sci-fi.
That's the that's the tinfoil that we all know and love.
One thing I really like that Heathen King talks about in this essay is he identifies how George sets up a lot of pitfalls for kind of heroic characters in A Song of Ice and Fire and sort of personifies them in other people. Like you said with Ramsay, Quentin, Theon. There's all these characters that have fatal flaws that means they don't get quite where they're going to be or where they could be as fantasy-ish heroes. And he lays out how John sort of sidesteps almost all of them in a way that doesn't feel like he's going down a checklist of how to be a great hero. It feels natural, which is hard to do. And I agree with Heathen King that it makes for a very deep character and one that's interesting on rereads once you realize what's going on with him.
Yeah. There's this, at the end of the post, he kind of breaks down, he asks this question, what is the boon that Jon Snow is supposed to share with humanity? And really talks about some of the lessons that Jon learns throughout his story. That the Night's Watch instills this idea of service, that he learns compassion, empathy, admitting ignorance. You know nothing, Jon Snow, as this refrain for him. The choice to not be cruel, to be just, as he's contrasted with Joffrey and Ramsay, and of failure as well, of learning from failure. So it's a really nice portion here at the end that cuts into a lot of you can almost tinfoil off this stuff because it's about the kind of leader Jon Snow will be based on the lessons we've seen him learn so far in the story, or hopefully that he's learned, I guess. Maybe he's just a dumb guy, but I think he knows more than nothing. Jon Snow.
I mean, he is a bit of a dummy, but he's a heroic dummy.
Or it's
There you
about how
go.
John knows. Do we want to go here?
I don't know where you're going.
I don't know. The term nothing during... This is not what George intended at all. But anyways, the term nothing can be a double entendre meaning vagina
Yes.
from Shakespeare's time, and that's why there's quite a bit of wordplay, etc. in titles such as Much Ado About
Much.
Nothing. So, Jon
Wow.
Snow has the Lord's kiss, so maybe that's something that Jon is going to bring back as the boon to the rest of Westeros.
As Ygritte says, you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Mhm.
He has an intimate knowledge of nothing.
Yeah, that's what he's
Wow.
going to bring back. Everyone will thank him for it.
That's a really great addition to
This
Heathen King's
essay.
post here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the icing on the cake.
I think that is the subtext. It's about cunnilingus, yes. All of it.
Another frequent category that we have for the best ofs is the best new theory, which is always really fun, and it's a great way to realize that, we're into this series and waiting for the books several years, but people are still coming up with new things, and it's really awesome. So, first place went to Paparazzi for the theory, The One True Ring, What's Really in the Winterfell Crypt, and that was about, a ring based off of some of the stuff from Dunk and Egg, and we discussed this theory on episode 13. We can swear now! So,
You're fucking right, we did.
if you want to check that out, they make you swear and swear. That would be episode 13 of Maester Monthly. But second place went to Skull of the Greyjohn, whom I believe we've discussed on Maester Monthly before, but this time it's for a post called Unnoticed Point about the Pink Letter. This is an interesting take on the Pink Letter, because a lot of the theories about the Pink Letter are, of course, about the authorship, which this does eventually touch on, but they're starting from the foundation that the author of the Pink Letter is conducting a Kingsblood sacrifice to the cold, as they state. So they're analyzing the letter by looking at all the different people who are asked for by the author, and using that to sort of triangulate who the author is.
It's funny because they actually say in the post, Skull of the Great John says, I haven't thought about the author, who the author could be much,
Right.
but it strengthens, but they think it strengthens the case for Mance as the author, because they're building up to this thing about the Pink Letter being a setup for like a blood ritual, I guess,
Yeah.
blood magic.
So he makes a lot of really good points about how there's like a torture chamber, there's some sort of way to kill people in every single castle. And when it comes to Winterfell, there's like the heart tree, there's snow. So it's an interesting thought process about what if there's some sort of other intentions behind the Pink Letter.
I know, yeah. It makes you look at the Pink Letter in a slightly different way, because so much of it has been about authorship, as we've said. But this is about like, okay, well, 5 of these 7 people have King's blood, and there's a big setup for sacrifice here. The frostbite is something that comes up, and they equate frostbite to like the self-mortification the burned men practice, which is an interesting connection, that kind of elemental symmetry. That's kind of it seems like a big underlying intellectual component of this post, right?
I do feel like there's been a lot of discussion about the Pink Letter this year in particular, and this is kind of a different take on it.
Mm-hmm. It's more about the content.
Yeah, it makes sense why this won second place for Best New Theory, because it really is a very fresh take on the Pink Letter. Yeah, something that's been discussed to death. I mean, on this podcast alone.
I really want to know if George intended that at all, or what he would think, knowing how picked apart it's been.
My read on it, and I think we've seen comments from Elio and Linda that sort of go this way, that it's probably not the huge mystery the fandom thinks it is, because whenever it comes up, they sort of throw cold water on it. And now they're obviously not George himself, but they do work closely with him and know quite a lot about how they personally know him. They helped write The World of Ice and Fire of Blood, so I don't know. It seems like one of those things that, like Joffrey and the Cat's Paw, where it's gotten blown out of proportion because the clues aren't there in order to be solved. But it doesn't mean it's pointless, I guess.
Yeah. I can see that. I mean, if the end of the book had the Battle of Ice and we saw a different thing happen than what happens in the letter, we'd be going, oh well, that's weird. There's a puzzle to figure out here, but it's not. The puzzle is like, why is there a discrepancy? Not like, what does the letter mean? Yeah, but I think it's one of the most fun things too. Like, I'm kind of glad we have this. Well, I was about to say I'm glad we have these 8 years to talk about. Maybe not 8. I would have been happy with like 4 or 5 years, but
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see the actual authorship of the Pink Letter, like someone actually physically writing it, or just find out about it in retrospect?
ooh,
Like, will this be, say, there's infiltration or a Bran Raven, which is a little more ridiculous, But like, who knows? I mean, Theon or someone will probably have to infiltrate Winterfell.
If we look at the way he solved his other puzzles, he never really had the person cop to it. Like the cat's paw thing,
Right.
that was a deduction from Tyrion, and George considered that basically solved at that point. So I doubt anyone will like maybe cop to it and say they exactly did it, but he'll probably lay hints so you can piece it together with the missing information.
Well, sometimes characters do come right out and say it, like Liza Aaron being like, "It was me! I poisoned John Aaron!"
That's true.
I mean, but if it
Yeah.
was Ramsay, presumably he'd say it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Like he'd, you know.
Acknowledge.
I've sent a letter
Yeah.
to yeah.
That'll show him.
Right.
Yeah, villains love their villain monologues. Even in A Song of Ice and Fire.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah. And like, I mean, even if maybe we don't see the writing of the letter, maybe we'll see Mance in a cage and like Ramsay next to, you know, like
Right.
the basic ingredients of the letter.
Pink letter.
I thought
Yeah.
it would be kind of interesting if all of the culprits were dead before we figured out.
Ooh, there we go.
That's a good,
It's never solved.
That's a good mystery thing. And then it turns out it was actually old Nan hiding in the cupboard.
No, it was Shaggy Dog. He learned to write and snuck back into Winterfell. Nailed it.
Nice.
Best new theory.
Well, actually, you know who just learned how to write in the books? Davos Seaworth.
Spicy tinfoil.
Yeah. He's sending a coded message to Stannis. No, to John. Wait, shit. I
Wait,
forgot
who's
who
actually
received the
sent
letter.
But that's
John, yeah.
that's the whole part of the message. It's the whole mystery.
Mm.
It's addressed
Right.
to John, but
It's actually for
Stannis.
Stannis.
In this letter, John means Stannis, and vice versa.
It's
Great.
his cute pet name for Stannis. He calls him John in private. So our third tier 1 award of the year went to comment of the year. Second place went to user Patrick McWhorter with his comment on the Lannisters' incredible PR team, while first place went to user the Coconut God with their post about Jaime killing Cersei would be a good end to Cersei's arc, but a step backwards in Jaime's. Coconut Gods is basically about how a lot of people think that Jaime's arc will end with him killing Cersei as a Valonqar, but in terms of where that's going for him as a character, someone who's trying to redeem himself, that would be kind of a step backward, which, you know, maybe works for Jaime, but I understand the point they're making. And then the second place from Patrick McWhorter, they're talking about how the Lannisters tend to lie about a lot of things, and they propose tinfoil, that there never was a bright roar, that they stole everything, they make everything up, that they're just boastful people, which, you know, kind of works with, in the show, they've said that the Lannisters are out of gold at this point, but everyone still thinks they got it.
2 Lannister comments of the year here.
Yeah, wow. The Lannisters really rigged the game.
Big showing for the Lions. The Jaime comment has me thinking. Because I mean, I've been of the opinion for a while that it's probably Jaime who's the Valonqar, right?
Mhm.
But this makes a good counterpoint that their point seems to be that this works best from Cersei's perspective. Like it's a twist for Cersei, but that it might not be the best plot twist for Jaime's character.
You know what would make it more noble for Jaime would be if Cersei were about to do something especially heinous, and that was what caused Jaime to kill her. Sort of like a, you know, Mad King Ares moment.
Mm-hmm.
Which the Coconut God addresses. They're saying that, yes, there's a parallel with Ares that people discuss, but they feel that the power dynamics are a little different because Ares was a monarch and therefore people were more obligated to follow what he said, whereas Cersei's only a queen regent, according to the Coconut God, and is a woman trying to grasp whatever power she can in a patriarchal world. So he's saying that any order that comes from Cersei has inherently less weight, and therefore Jaime or whoever isn't obligated to follow it.
I guess their argument is that like we won't see something like in the show where Cersei has this kind of absolute power that has to be
Right.
stopped, where in the books her power is more limited. I could still see a scenario where like she is mercy killing Myrcella or so, you know, like some crazy thing.
Or trying to kill Tyrion or something.
Yeah, for sure, right. Yeah, that there is something awful that she's doing that Jaime needs to stop her from doing, but maybe not on the scale that the show has her doing, you know, mass detonations under the city.
I still think that she'll become queen, though. probably in her own right. Because once the kids die off, she'll take power. I don't know. I feel like she'll be named queen before Aegon invades. And then somehow she'll either take the city for a little while or flee back to the Rock. But yeah, I think it'll be a similar to Aerys moment where she orders some sort of big destruction and Jaime goes against her. The thing, like, it's a very interesting to think about how, yeah, that's not really great for Jaime's arc. But at the same time, I think it's kind of wrong to say that Jaime's even having a redemption arc in general. Like, it's much more a tragic arc. He's going to try to redeem himself, but like, I think Jaime's for sure going to run back to Cersei's arms at some point. Like, he's not done with her yet, especially when he finds out about the Walk of Shame and everything that's going on. I don't know. I feel like they'll cross paths again, and then, yeah, he'll probably be the Valancourt, but I still think it'll be a big... I don't know if it'll be something more like she's just ranting and raving, kill them all, or she has, like, some actual orders she can get through.
Right.
I mean, I hope it's the latter, but who knows?
Yeah.
Still all that wildfire hanging out under King's Landing. Saying.
Maybe she just, like, loads up a wagon of it and goes rogue around the countryside. Like,
right. Because, I mean, it's...
Just, like, driving down the road, just throwing them.
Yeah, just hucking them at, like, peasants.
Like, you would think it's probably likely that Cersei makes it pretty late in the game, too. Like, maybe even past the others. Because she's the chief antagonist when it comes down to it. Like, sure, you have the others and whatnot. But throughout the story, Cersei's the bad guy. And so it's like, you can't just, like... I don't know. I think it wouldn't be as powerful to kill her off before really even that whole endgame. Like, there's probably still more, and that's when Jaime does it.
I do agree that I think she's going to be later. She's going to be around much later in the story than people might think. Like you said, like Jaime, like the Jaime Cersei thing really is kind of like the OG, like plot. You know,
right?
It's their misbehavior that kind of kicks off a lot of this, and so I think they have to be involved in kind of the very near end stuff because I don't know, it's just it feels like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah, there's symmetry to their story that they were born seconds after each other. I think at one point Cersei says, like, we came into the world together, we'll go out of the world together.
That's right.
Yeah. Kind of makes sense that at some point they will just, like, shrug off this mortal coil at the same time. Maybe this time Jaime going out first and then Cersei second or something like that.
I think it's like Tony was saying, we don't know for sure that Jaime is actually on a redemption arc. There may be redemptive elements to his story. I wonder though, because if Jaime's not on a redemption arc, there's a lot that is interesting about the way Jaime and Cersei's story plays out. Like, Jaime and Cersei is the one exploration that we get of a very mundane topic that many people have experienced, which is going through a breakup. And the fact of the matter is we're going through it in a very unorthodox lens, which is Jaime and Cersei being, twins who sleep together.
Hey.
But
yeah,
what?
It's a great exploration of that everyday feeling of how easily love can turn to disgust and hate when you've broken up with someone, when someone has betrayed you or something like that. And what if Cersei doesn't do something horrible, right? Like, what if Jaime kills her out of just some sort of spite? And it's not good. It's not a good look. But something like that could be the case. Though, of course, there is a lot in the storyline to point to Jaime being the Valonqar, as you were all saying. They came into this world together, perhaps they go out. And when they came into the world together, Jaime's holding Cersei's foot, which is very much pointing to the idea of the Achilles heel. But I do like to say every now and then, it would be hilarious if Tyrion were the Valonqar. Because it's funny to me for a broken clock to be right twice a day. And I think there's nothing more unexpected and hilarious than if Cersei turns out to be right. I'm only in it for the lols, but
#lols. Also, I wanted to point out on the redemption arc thing, a lot of people see that because he's trying to model himself after Arthur Dayne and Gerald Hightower, but if you look at those characters, they're very honorable people that served a horrible, horrible king and did everything he asked. So even if he becomes Arthur Dayne to Cersei's Aerys, like, is that still even a good person? I don't know. That's a good question.
And he's also trying to model himself after Tywin. I mean, that's how he leaves Riverrun. Like, oh yeah, I want to be
Yeah.
Arthur Dane, I want to be Gerald Hightower, but I got to do things the Tywin way.
Not great role models.
Yes.
No.
For more on that discussion, you can see our discussion of No Mercy and No Empty Threats, Kingslayer's Choice in the Winds of Winter by Bale
Indeed.
Bard.
The next Tier 1 award is for Post of the Year. Second place went to Zombie Bait, who is our friend Lysan Arbor.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For the post, Mercy, Mercy, Mercy on Sansa, Sandor, and Arya. First place went to Tom Aries' post, Spreadsheet of all Song of Ice and Fire characters 2018 update, which we discussed on episode 15.
That's right.
I remember talking about baby names.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember it now.
It was. It's a pretty impressive spreadsheet. There's not much to say about it here, but
It's
everyone should just go
extensive.
look at it. It's great.
It's
Yes.
impressive, and they've, as far as I know, added to it since what, Fire and Blood came out, right? They've already
I think
updated
so.
it, I think.
I believe that's right.
The Zombie Bait post is dense. In a good way. It's got a lot of quotes and context from the books. But basically, it is about the relationship between Sandor and Sansa and Sandor and Arya, and sort of what Sandor teaches Sansa and Arya as they interact in their stories, and then what Sansa and Arya sort of teach Sandor, and this theme of mercy, which comes up a lot in the books, but thinking about Sansa and Mother's mercy, and thinking about Arya giving, mercy like the gift of death and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And it she brings in as well some just like a hint of Clegane Bowl. Not really Clegane Bowl. She addresses that. The idea that a conflict between the Clegane brothers might look more like Sandor giving mercy to Gregor than sort of the epic Sunday night showdown that so many people have been looking forward to for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Cue vuvuzelas going off.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Something
stuff.
Bud Night.
Oh, it's true.
That's right. Yeah, so there's an element of like, instead of vengeance, Clegane Bowl could be a thing of mercy, of Sandor giving the gift of death to his brother Gregor, based on how his character has changed by meeting Sansa and Arya, and how their stories have explored mercy. Arya's chapter from The Winds of Winter is titled Mercy. It's clearly clearly a big element in their stories going forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting how they're sort of going out in parallel paths, where a lot of Sansa's arc is about giving people mercy. Like, I think in particular, Sherdantos is a prime example of that. She saved his life for really no reason other than she just felt bad for him. Whereas Arya is being taught over and over again to deny people mercy, to seek vengeance, to kill people. But as maybe how it's going to go is, I'm not going to rep last season's Arya-Sansa arc is fantastic, but it did end up going the other way, where Sansa's the one that actually got the vengeance and ordered Arya to do it. And it may end up they cross that way, where you expect Arya to be the one to take revenge and to have to go out and get kills that is needed in the story, but maybe Sansa the one that ends up making them happen instead.
Which is what Lysan Arbor / Zombie Bait says in this post, the idea that Arya has been giving this supposed gift of mercy this whole time, but will have to do so, as you said, like in a way that isn't vengeance, in a way that will cause her pain. The idea that she might have to give that gift of mercy to her mother, Lady Stoneheart, who is currently, Mother Merciless, and that Sansa would not. She would retract her mercy that she's been showing so many people, especially towards Littlefinger. Same situation. Because after seeing what has happened to Jane Poole, after hearing perhaps the account of what happened in King's Landing could come from Bran, I guess, as it did in the show, but also if Sandor Clegane is there, he was in the throne room. And the Royces, so.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting point that she brings up. the way Sansa's story is, the direction her story is going in. With regards to Mercy, I really liked. I mean, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I just like the way this was written. Like, there's a lot of good sentences in here. But there's something that I really liked that I picked out, which is closer to the end, where Lysa, our zombie bait, is saying, no one is accursed as the Kingslayer, and it should never be easy to kill a family member. Where killing Gregor might have been the Hound's dream about a year ago, the Hound turned up dead. Sandor will be giving his brother the gift of mercy, taught to him by the two little girls that snuck beneath his skin. And I like that last sentence, but I also like the idea, which is bolded, that it should never be easy to kill a family member. I think that's an important thing to pull out, and it sounds obvious when you say it outside of A Song of Ice and Fire, but within the context of the story, I think sometimes we'll slip into these, like, I don't know, let's murder this, like this person murders that person because it's fucking cool or whatever, and like, I think the story's a little more complicated than that.
Right, like the perfect example is Tyrion and Tywin, where everyone basically cheered when Tywin finally bit it, but then George has Tyrion essentially try to kill himself via wine afterwards and destroys his psyche that he had to do it. Even though we pretty much know Tywin had it coming, doesn't make it any easier for Tyrion actually pulling the crossbow.
And even Stannis, he says that he will go to his grave thinking of his brother's peach.
He does.
So many, I'm just thinking, so many characters in these books actually are killed by family members if you consider family by marriage.
Who's it, like, who does that include? What do you think?
Well, I mean, like, Lysa is killed by Littlefinger.
Oh.
Yeah. Joffrey is killed by Olenna.
Robert and Rhaegar, they're cousins.
True.
True.
So Stannis is responsible for Renly's death, but that's not marriage. Even the Red Wedding. I mean, like, Walder Frey is technically related by marriage to Kat and her family.
That's a good point. Yeah. He's her father-in-law.
They're,
or whatever.
But Robert is...
However you put that.
Accursed is the in-law slayer.
Yeah. Robert is still haunted, though, by his fight with Rhaegar. It wasn't easy for him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think... there's many reasons this post was second place for Post of the Year, but I think throughout this very specific analysis, it really taps into some of the bigger ideas in asoiaf, and that was one that particularly stood out. Definitely,
that's one of the hallmarks of a very good theory, is that it resonates in other parts. It just keeps the further out you get from it, the lessons or the ideas in it still work.
This is, again, less of like a theory prediction post and more of just a character analysis post, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Which is interesting that a lot of our, posts have been more, I think of them as academic, right? Instead of like, what if this happens? It's like, this is what you would do for English class.
For sure, yeah. This is basically a paper. I mean...
and I mean, it makes sense considering where we are in the wait for new material.
Yeah.
It's just the kind of stuff I like.
Yeah,
same.
And as we said, it makes sense why it was so high up in the competition, but it is hard to top someone who made like 8,000 of characters spreadsheet.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like what's more valuable, one great analysis or like a Search of Ice and Fire? I mean, it's basically what it is.
It's hard to measure that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
She kind of ran into a brick wall of a great resource for the community.
And baby names.
And baby names.
But is Waldoweegi on this list?
Waldoweegi.
So now we're at the final of our Tier 1 awards. These go for the Dolores Ed award for funniest one-liner, so it's kind of the best, not necessarily the funniest post, but one-liner, little comment. And so the winner this year was Can I Try To? And it was a thread about Cersei and Tyrion, but then it derailed into or turned into a talk about how Ned and Catelyn eventually decided that Ned should be a hand. And so the post was, she, as in Catelyn, set up Ned to take the hand job with Lewin, too. So,
I just want to note regarding this post. I guess when it was nominated, it's described as the accidental implication of a Lewin and Catelyn affair. But I want you to read this line aloud for me one more time, Tony.
right. So Catelyn set up Ned to take the hand job with Lewin, too.
I think if you read this, it actually sets it up for Ned and Lewin to be the ones
Right.
having the affair, not Catelyn and Lewin.
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
How could Catelyn receive a hand job? Doesn't work.
We don't want to make any
Yeah.
assumptions about Catelyn, but we
And also, you gotta broaden your definition of hand job. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
It looks like
What?
the Maesters in A Song of Ice and Fire really have a lot more duties than originally thought. You know, we'll see if when Sam's in the Citadel, if this is any part of his training.
Oh.
Oh.
Wow.
I want to know what that link is made out of.
But
Silicone.
what's great too about a
Silicone.
post like this is and this when you read the rest of the comments, obviously Can I Try Too, when he wrote it, didn't fully understand what he wrote or catch, because it's like you're reading that we all make these mistakes where you write something like that and then you go back when people point it out, and that makes it so much funnier too. So thank you, Can I Try Too, for making us all laugh at the prospective Ned Lewin romance that which is great because we had just talked about Tywin and Pycelle. So we're coming full
We
circle
also had
here.
that. We also had that extensive post about Ned being gay, but that was a different modcast.
Yeah.
Was it a modcast?
No,
I think it was the Slashcast. Yeah.
the one
Yeah.
where you talked about Tom Aries.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the neutral good version of the like neutral evil Pywin ship.
Right.
Is Luned.
Luned.
Edwin?
Edwin.
Nedwin.
Nedwin. Nedwin and Pywin. Aw.
Why are they both ending in win?
'Cause it's
Lewin and
minions.
Tywin.
Maybe this is the secret
I
code.
think it's a win-win situation.
Oh.
We're in here.
One,
Oh my.
is that what One-One's name is about?
Other than Phil Sims, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
One-One
yeah.
just two maesters in a coat on top of each other?
I think it's got to be like 5.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a couple maesters, yeah. We did have a second place as well.
Right. Yep. So the second place now was by user Sir Duncan on y'all, which itself is a great username. And so it was in a post about a fleet. It was by you, Coconut God, who has a theory about an exodus to Essos, where I guess the gist of that is that a lot of the Westerosi will flee to Essos, not Exodus.
Although,
but that works. That's hashtag
If they're fleeing
new
there,
theory.
yeah.
But part of it too is that Stannis dies, and Sir Duncan Anyal commented, "All I can think about when reading this was dead Stannis returning with bright blue eyes, but still grinding his teeth so hard they start falling apart." So I think that might be the best character analysis we saw all year, because that is Stannis.
That's pretty strong
Stannis
right there.
to a T. But yeah, it's funny to think about undead Stannis, I guess.
I'm just imagining like undead Stannis like coming across a peach and just kind of looking at it,
aw,
just like standing there sadly going, "I know something about this."
grinding his teeth at peaches.
That's
One solitary white
she
tear.
sees me, the she sees me moment from the Varamir POV with Stannis. The peach, we'll get a POV from the peach. He knows me.
The skin changing a peach.
Oh,
Is it
and
possible?
inside is James and the Giant Peach.
Oh my god! And all the bugs.
Yeah.
Jamie and the giant peach.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just free associating.
Who's
What
Peach?
made you right? Oh.
Renly.
Peach.
Jamie and Renly now.
Yeah.
No. Peach is she's coming in second place, but you know who's coming in first place?
Waluigi.
Toad.
Waluigi.
I see.
I'm a Daisy main actually.
Oh.
Fair
Wow.
enough.
Wait,
Yeah.
which game?
What?
Which game?
Oh, Ultimate Smash Ultimate.
All right, fair enough.
Oh, I still haven't. I haven't played that one yet. I sat down and played Melee on my couch for a couple hours the other day. Even though it's 18 years old.
I still play Kart for 64, so.
There we go. All right.
You could probably sell that Melee for a few $100s.
I never
Hey.
had a 64.
That's best.
Yeah. Does yours still work then?
Yeah.
Nice.
In college, I won a Mario Kart tournament. But
wow. Nice.
This
Yeah.
is a good fun factoid.
no, it was good. It was basically the highlight of my life so far.
Yeah, you
And it
really
was
peaked.
it was
You
a
peaked
great
early,
highlight.
didn't
No,
you?
I peaked. It was great. I mean,
So who do you play in Mario Kart?
Toad.
Toad,
Yeah,
that's the way to go.
yeah.
Especially
Speedy.
64.
And
Yeah.
I get those red E's. You know about red E's? When you got to move the joystick back and forth.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
You do power slides your way
those.
around.
Power
Yeah,
slide.
that's
yeah,
right. Those
for
were
days.
things.
Just power sliding around.
Oh,
Sherbert Land, Coco,
man.
Koopa Troopa Beach.
I just want
Of
to
course.
point out he said the highlight of his life wasn't being modded or being on Maester Monthly.
Why would it be?
We're luminaries.
I would be
mean,
way more proud of winning a Mario
No.
Kart.
I would.
tournament.
I'd
Yeah,
be more proud
dude.
of that too.
What did you? Did you win any like prize or anything?
Yeah,
Like,
well,
was there-
guess what? Guess what I won? A Nintendo Wii that they never gave me. So
Oh.
it was, yeah. No, it's this.
Take
this
them to
but
court.
now it's the lowest point of my life. So
Oh man.
it was
Well, this
really
is your
just,
roller
this is your
coaster.
chance to drag them.
I know.
That's-
Yeah, true. If you're listening out there, you know who you are. But no, so it was a fraternity who was doing the tournament in college, and
Uh-huh.
they like charge $5 entry, and they're like the prize will be a Wii, but when fraternities do their like events like that, you have to give something to charity, and so they only
Oh.
made like $300, and they were like, we have to give that all to charity. We can't. It's either the Wii or we're literally just had a charity event for no one. And so they
A charity for you of getting your
I know.
Wii.
I know.
You were needy. You had no. Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
robbed.
It was bad, but I've been getting over it. Therapy one day at a time. I want that
Yeah.
Wii.
There you go.
Yeah,
Stay
Yeah.
strong.
This is
Take
what
it
we're
one day
here
at a
for.
time.
yeah. That's why I signed up to become a mod. I need to redeem myself.
you need like to process it.
Yeah.
You need a new activity. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that brings us to our tier 2 awards. Somehow, it brings us to our tier 2 awards. The first award in the tier 2 category is the best tinfoil slash shiniest tinfoil theory, and this is for a theory that is genuinely tinfoil. You know, it might not be likely to be accurate, but it sure is fun and is shiny tinfoil. And the winner this year is user TLTWP for their post connecting Littlefinger to the Lyanna was kidnapped story. And their TLDR for this post, which is kind of the best summary, is that they think there's a strong chance that Littlefinger would have told Brandon the kidnapping story, Lyanna's kidnapping story in heavy air quotes, not as part of some grand scheme, but purely to piss Brandon off. And the way events snowballed would have been something he never could have anticipated. Once Littlefinger saw the huge effect his words had, though, it was like a serial killer having his first kill. It almost, they say, makes way too much sense with the symmetry of the story. So you know it's a good post when they say that it almost makes too much sense. But basically the idea being that Littlefinger, in an attempt to get back at Brandon, Lyanna disappears, Brandon shows up at Riverrun, he's like, hey, where's my sister? And Littlefinger, just to be spiteful, is like, oh, Rhaegar totally kidnapped her with a bunch of dudes. And Brandon believes him, and obviously the events of Robert's Rebellion happen, and Littlefinger is, staring out the window like Joe Bluth, with a big knife wound in his belly, going, I've made a huge mistake. But he's learned something from it. And the post goes on for quite a while, actually, about how this can have kind of affect Ned's own perception of things and his life and the relationship he has with Littlefinger, and how important it would be for Sansa to be the one to sort of destroy Littlefinger with this added wrinkle. I don't know. I mean, where do you guys fall on this one?
TLTWP, which must stand for something, and I don't know what it is. Like the lynch that was promised. starts
The lentils.
The lentils that
The
were promised.
lentils that were promised. Yeah.
Starts this post off about how it was in reaction to, and I remember this episode, a discussion on whether, Littlefinger could have said anything right. And this was discussed at the beginning of a not a podcast episode. And I just remember being in the car with a friend, Courtney, as we were heading up to the New Jersey Fire and Blood event, and we heard this, and I know that not a podcast felt it was implausible, but I kind of fall in the same spectrum as TLTWP, where I don't think that it's something that Littlefinger would have schemed and done intentionally. It's just like something like a shitty kid says, like offhand. Like, I don't even know that he was trying to say it to piss off Brandon, but maybe he was, but your kids, like, say shit, especially if they're upset, and yeah, I actually was surprised that it was dismissed so easily.
Yeah.
Not to throw shade at, like, my boys, but...
I end up agreeing with the Nauticast boys on this. I think the major problem with this is the timeline. That it's kind of implausible that Littlefinger was still at River Run after all this happened, because I think Brandon went back to the north and then came back for the wedding, or he went to the Vale. He went somewhere that takes a long time. So it's said that Littlefinger was on his way back to the Fingers because he was almost killed in his duel. So it's like, I don't know, maybe Littlefinger has like friends left behind, or somebody did it as revenge for what Brandon did to Littlefinger, but it seems kind of unlikely that he actually did it himself, although I do like the points made in the post that it would make for great symmetry and a super villain origin story for Littlefinger. Like, this is where he got the taste for blood kind of thing. And those parts work very well.
I'm going to push back on the timeline thing, because he wasn't sent back because of his injuries. He was sent back a little while after. It must have been at least a few weeks after, because he sent back because he got Liza pregnant.
Yeah, it was only like 2 weeks, though.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why this persists.
Yeah. It's ambiguous enough to fit it in, but it's probably not true.
Right.
And now there's a fun wrinkle on this, though, which is that after Brandon dies, Peter sends Kat a single letter, and she burns it without reading it. And there's, I mean, if this theory is true, and I like the idea that Littlefinger did mess with the story somehow. If this theory is true, could that have been Peter, like, maybe not confessing exactly, but I don't know. Like, I think there's interesting implications for that letter. Obviously, the letter could just be Peter sending her a letter to be like, now we can be together, my love. But, I don't know. It seems like there could also have been some sort of piece of information in that, which would be an interesting parallel with Liza sending the letter to Kat at the start of a Game of Thrones, which contains some misleading information about an individual's death. I don't know.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert about that one, yeah.
What?
Sorry, no, it was just the way you were being vague about it. It was...
A certain character who passes away, whose name rhymes with Mom Blairin.
I would like it if the letter Littlefinger sent was just like a little picture of himself with like holding his hands up like this, and it's just like, I heart you. And that was it. It wasn't anything deeper.
It's like a Valentine.
Yeah, like a Valentine.
You complete me.
To Kat, love sure. Peter.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a theory you see come up a good amount.
Yeah.
Like, it's come up over there. There's other iterations of it, too. Like, people say Littlefinger was there at the crossroads, supposedly, or hypothetically, and witnessed the whole thing go down. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for it, but personally, I don't think it's true. And I also don't really like, necessarily, how it would add this origin story to Littlefinger like that. It gives him too much meddling in, like, a huge event, and then it just like cheapens almost the whole John Aaron and current thing, because it's like, oh, he's just doing it again, and not this like I've been building for years.
True.
Nobody suspects the Littlefinger,
right?
Yeah,
and you also don't need this to like give Brandon motivation to charge like a dumbass into King's Landing and and get himself killed. That's pretty much his character on his own. Right. Like he doesn't need a push to do this. He would do this on his own anyway. He almost fought Rhaegar at the tourney at Harrenhal after he crowned Lyanna. So it's like, yeah, this is totally something he would do even without a push.
But the timeline definitely leaves it open to a degree. That's why I think this persists so much.
Yeah.
And there is
Yeah,
something to be
it's-
said about it too. Like it would be interesting if that's kind of Littlefinger did kind of have his revenge this way, but I feel
Yeah.
like the kidnapping of Lyanna was probably such a public event. Like it's in the world book, so it got out. I don't think you need a Littlefinger to be like, yo, this was what happened. Check it. I'm on Instagram
Sure.
Live right now, Brandon.
Yeah.
I just
He's periscoping.
I don't
Y'all would not believe this.
I don't see it as like Littlefinger having been the one to inform everyone like, yo, Lyanna disappeared. You idiots. I see it as more of him ribbing someone, being like, how can you protect Catelyn when you can't even protect your sister, you big dummy? That's what I mean, like, in that it's not,
yeah.
like, super intentional on his part. It's just something, like, some salty-ass kid says.
Right, sure. Yeah. Getting under Brandon's skin a little bit.
And we see he does it all the time with
like-
Ned. He just makes these little comments, and you're like, excuse me?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Right.
that's his whole thing, is, like, seeing how much he can get away with. I mean, he's a is that sociopath? I can't remember, like, which...
I think
what
it's
that is. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. but,
piece of shit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too.
The
I was trying to
official
think of something like
diagnosis
that.
there.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, hold up. Let me open my DSM-4 here real quick.
And Littlefinger would
there
be
it is.
braver than I ever thought
There it
if he
is.
actually taunted Brandon after he basically almost killed him. Like,
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that takes some balls.
Yeah, and why would
Yeah, I feel like Peter is dumb. Like, not dumb. Obnoxious enough.
I mean, suppose he
maybe.
loves
He's
sick.
a
That's what it is.
preteen.
but why
Yeah,
would
that too?
but why
Right.
would Brandon take him seriously?
That's the other part. Like, he hates Littlefinger. Why would he believe him?
Well, I'm not saying he believes. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think it's that he's taking Littlefinger seriously or any information that Littlefinger gets. I'm saying people already fucking know, and Littlefinger's out here being like, "Yeah, dummy,"
Right, sure.
Yeah.
and like ribbing him and being like, "Wow, you're really not gonna go out there?" Or I don't know. He's not like doing it intentionally. It's just like, I don't know, under maybe saying something under his breath, right?
Right.
Sure, yeah.
And I guess that's why I see it as not super implausible.
So, like, the soft version of
Right.
this theory,
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
not necessarily like mastermind Littlefinger, but just like they played a role in the motivations for Brandon to go off the rails a little more than even Brandon might usually be expected to.
Yeah, like this might be, I don't know, the Diet Coke version, right, of the
Right.
of the original theory, and mine is, I don't know, the fucking La Croix of this theory.
Sure,
No
yeah,
flavor
yeah.
whatsoever.
Theirs is the Budweiser and yours is the O'Doul's.
Oh, God.
I think.
Yeah. Or it could be like he did with Loras to get him on the Kingsguard, where he didn't
Yes.
tell Loras to join the Kingsguard, but he had rumors go out and have people sing songs about how great knights were and heroes of the past in order to make Loras think that was a good idea. That would be more him rather than just like, hey man, you
Well, yeah.
really gonna let this happen?
But
Well,
that's
yeah, but that's totally plausible. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's what Eliana's saying, right?
that's
Like,
Yeah, I
that's
was agreeing
over
with her.
years. Like him doing what he did to Loras is something after years of like figuring out. All right, this is how you push people's buttons. But when you're like, what is he? He's like 12 or like 13 or something, right, at this time, and like he doesn't know. He doesn't. You don't have any subtlety at that age. Like I'd be
Yeah.
impressed.
yeah.
Like if you have subtlety at that age, it's because you're what?
A piece of
Arya,
shit.
right? And you've been trained to be an assassin and are being taught to do so at threat of beating. Alright, and so we have also another tier 2 category, and this one is the best catch, which goes to user Moncavelli. And this post is entitled Theory on How Euron Walked the Doom Without Setting a Foot in Valyria. And it discusses again that idea that how could Euron have gotten his Valyrian steel armor when we know from Fire and Blood that Arya, having gone there on Valyrian, struggled being there because eventually she had like fucking worms inside of her and died. And their suggestion is that Euron used warging to, you know, warg his crewmen and have them go into Valyria to get things.
I believe you mean skin changing, not wargame.
I did, I
I know.
know, but I you could hear I paused. I was like, warging?
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to be like, I don't know.
Oh, I'm gonna
You
be
You
the
gotta
guy.
go with it. You committed.
Yeah, no, I mean they do have warging as their like, impact sentence there. No, but yeah, other than that, no, it's a fun catch. I don't know. I feel like I hadn't seen this posted somewhere before, although it seems really obvious now that it's posted. Like, I don't know. Had you thought about that at all?
I mean, do you really think though that like I thought that Bran warging Hodor, skin changing Hodor, is supposed to be this like a very rare event. So I wonder if it's really that easy for Euron to supposedly be skin changing all of his crewmates, and if it's not just some sort of, I don't know, weird power play he's doing, or like he can sort of dip into them, but he doesn't really know how much. Like Hodor's this like simpleton who is essentially, we'll probably find out, designed for Bran. And so it's like,
Right.
is Euron just like, fuck that kid, I'm gonna skin change 20 guys, get me some armor, get me some mango salsa in Valyria, come back.
At that point, he's just like the most powerful character in the
Right,
story.
and it's just like, does that
Sure,
make
okay.
Bran's event not so rare? I mean, but then again, it makes him a very formidable opponent for Bran, especially when they'll probably meet in the astral plane.
Fight their lightsaber duel.
I'm gonna throw cold water on this theory, but I like the idea at the base of it is that he used his crew. I think that's probably like the actual nice catch. He just like at the point of a sword said, "Go out there or else you die right now," because he's that kind of asshole. Got his crew to go scavenge, not because that's the kind of person he is. You don't have to skin change dudes in order to get them to do that kind of thing when you're as cruel as Euron. You can just use violence as a threat if you want. But this theory does lay out that that's basically what he did, and that's probably true.
Such a good guy.
Yeah. A real gem. I mean, and we do see an example of it from Varamir as well, who does, I mean, he doesn't really succeed in skin changing Thistle in the prologue, but he comes close, and that's in a very like weakened state, and he's not doing great. I think it's fair to say that Euron is probably going to be, for just story purposes, at least as competent a skin changer as Varamir, if not more so, if he is a skin changer. Like, we have to sort of up the threat level with Bran a little bit if he's a Bran opponent. So he's probably at least. So I could see him, and the other wrinkle being maybe if your crew person or your like skin changing subject is willing, it's easier. Like maybe he basically like browbeats them into like accepting his control or something. Like maybe Thistle fights it, right? And Hodor retreats from it, but could a person like give themselves to
That's very keeping
mind
within his
control.
character too, and what we know about him. So yeah, I actually I never thought about it that way.
I literally just thought about it that way.
And with Bran, the idea is that Hodor retreats because he's already been skin changed once. I
Hodor.
don't know if it's going to play out exactly like in the show, but I think it's going to be very similar, probably. At least in terms of, I don't know, time stuff.
And just
the
the
idea is-
general too. The general idea will be this,
Yeah. It's not that Hodor was made for Bran, or that it was easier for Bran to skin change into Hodor. It's the idea that it's easier now for Bran to skin change into Hodor, because it's that idea that's brought up in the books of a horse that's already been broken will be easier to ride in subsequent times.
Yeah, that's something that gets. I'm pretty sure Varamir says something almost exactly like that.
Maybe
about
it's from
skin changing.
Varamir. That would make
'cause it's
perfect
the
sense.
Dogs. When he's talking about dogs,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
you can
yeah.
just slip into them.
Right. So, I guess I can, I can see a way that it works for Euron here, but agreed. The main thrust of it, that he doesn't need to set foot on Valyria to
Right.
get his Valyrian
Yeah.
swag. Like, yeah, that's fair.
Totally in
That's a good point.
keeping with how he operates.
Yeah. Especially, I feel like it also, there's that moment with Roderick the Reader where Roderick's like, have you really been to Valyria?
And he's like,
And
kinda.
Euron's like, how dare, yeah, basically I've been
I
to
stepped on the
Valyria.
beach, bro.
Yeah.
I went to the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
And
yeah.
it's good too.
Yeah.
How they use fire
Yeah.
and blood and bring in that whole area, because that was like frightening, and it's who the hell knows is what's really going on in Valyria. Maybe she just spent too
Oh.
much time there, like it's a bad sunburn.
Yeah, she got the Montezuma's
Right,
revenge of Valyria.
exactly.
Oh, The worst
Oh.
kind.
Yeah.
I still like the theory that Uranus become a giant fireworm at this
Huh.
point.
Uh,
Men
oh,
in
the-
Black style
yeah,
from
I
our
was
last
thinking Men in
episode.
Black also.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ariel went and she came back with a T-shirt
Mhm.
that said, "I went to Valyria and all I got were these lousy fireworms."
Aw.
Can
There's
we
a
get Can we
t-shirt.
get some fan art of that? That would
Let's
be,
get some merch going.
Yeah, Maester Monthly merch. Mm.
I think it would just be a big, just like bestiality across it. That's all it would say.
Yeah,
God.
people would love to wear that T-shirt.
With the fireworm.
Just a shirt that. What if it just said? Yeah. What if it just said bestiality in like Arial black font?
Yeah.
Like.
Christ.
Or that picture of the three of us as Aegon and his sisters.
Yeah. Well, I think we need a bigger Targaryen fan. We need all 37 mods in like a
Ooh.
Targaryen family portrait.
Yeah.
I bet we could do that. We could figure it out.
Why though?
Yeah.
Why though?
Why not?
Speaking of saying why though, Matt, do you want to do our next category?
Sure thing. Our next category in our Tier 2 rewards is the Alchemist Award, the theory most likely to make you want to light yourself on fire, if true, by user Everything M, the dark secret of Boros Blunt.
Dun, dun,
Now-
dun.
The main thrust of this theory is that Boros Blunt gets kind of embarrassed in A Song of Ice and Fire as he has to become a food taster because he's so bad at his job. And the dark secret of Boros Blunt is that he will take his revenge, rat cook style, and eat Tommen Baratheon after killing him. Mwah, eldritch horror. Boros Blunt. I mean, yeah, that's basically it.
That is the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this would be like the darkest thing in A Song of Ice and Fire if it was true, maybe. Like Tommen, the wonderful little cherub,
It would
being
be
eaten by gross Boros Blunt.
it would be the darkest thing if he had him with a side of beets.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh.
Now there is some fine etymology in this post, which is the that apparently Boros, they say, is obviously derived from the ancient Greek.
Obviously.
Obviously translated into English means eating or devouring, and then his last name Blount, which Gurm switched to Old French for this inspiration, comes from the French word blonde, meaning blonde or fair. So
I thought you said blunt
literally-
for a second.
Yeah, he's eating the blunt. No, he's
Boros Blunt smoking up.
so he's literally eating the blonde one. That's if you combine the ancient Greek and Old French, liberally.
George in his baby books just looking up, okay, so I need somebody that's going to eat a blonde-haired guy.
Yep. Now, I was a big fan of the top comment on this by NPW39487W3PREGIH.
Yeah.
Trenchers of savory roasted Tommen Baratheon stuffed with onions and mushrooms, swimming in heavy cream and butter, along with turnips and neeps, great
neeps.
loaves of brown bread and a wheel of cheese and thick brown ale.
But no beets.
No beats.
No.
Yeah, really missing it.
Do you think Sir Pounce joins in?
Sir Pounce
Oh.
is the
The food
appetizer.
tester.
All of your cats will eat you if you're dead long enough.
That's actually true, yeah.
Hashtag
They
true.
don't care about
I mean,
you.
that is another very dark theory about Tommen, is
Oh,
that
true.
his cats will
right.
be poisoned with basilisk blood, and then they will go berserk and eat him. So maybe Boros just helps out, or
Right.
something.
He
you know?
walks in at the most opportune time. Oh yes, I knew I liked these cats.
And he's like, "Whoa, these cats!" He steals the kill from the cats. He's like, "You're not gonna eat this whole meal.
Yeah.
I'm
Right,
hungry."
He bares his teeth.
Yeah.
He roars like a lion.
Shoo, I just fed you.
Oh wow, it's gonna be really funny when in the Winds of Winter, someone's going through like Boros Blount's possessions and they find this book and it's titled "To Serve Man." Oh no!
Oh wow.
What is it? From
I got it. I
Red,
got it.
Red Dragon with Hannibal has the books on how to on anatomy, and on it he points to a body part and says how you to cook it. And he was like, "Oh no,
Oh no!
he's a cannibal."
I think really the most offensive, the thing about this post that makes me want to set myself on fire the most is the way the quotation marks are, like it's a lower quotation mark at the beginning and an upper one at the end. What is that? Is that like a
That's
stylistic
trolling.
thing. You know
This
how
is-
it,
I think it's like
It's
that
just trolling.
somewhere, but I don't know where.
okay,
Is this like a foreign language?
It's not German.
it's not German.
It's not Spanish.
I didn't think so.
It's not French, so far as I know.
How do you even do that in your?
Maybe it's ancient Greek.
The dark arts.
Yeah, maybe you had to have eaten someone to unlock this skill.
This is how you know Cthulhu
That's
wrote this.
right.
You got the things to switch upside down on you.
wow.
Yeah.
It's the upside down.
Dutch. It's Dutch.
Dutch.
Maybe.
Dutch.
Oh.
Possibly.
I always knew Dutch were evil.
Now,
I
I mean,
know why.
obviously, we know that Boris Blunt is actually a reference to LeGarrette Blunt, who plays on the Detroit Lions.
Oh my God.
Formerly of the Patriots.
Formerly the Patriots. And in fact, I don't think he was playing football when the series was started because he was born in 1986. So
Yeah, I was gonna say in elementary school. You know.
yeah, it's the long con.
Wow.
Does like anybody have a theory on how Tommen just has like a good life and doesn't die in a horrible way?
No, why would we have that? That it's not
That's
in
what
the
I want for him.
prophecy.
That would be shiniest tinfoil next year. You heard it here first. It's going to be a shiny tinfoil theory about how Tommen doesn't die.
Yeah.
Becomes the best king of the Seven Kingdoms it's ever seen.
Yeah. To serve Tom Men. I'm still trying to figure out a good way to make that one work.
Too many cooks. Too many cooks.
Tom Many Cooks.
With Boris Blunt in the background
many
as the killer.
Oh, wow.
You
That's
think you could
great.
sous vide Tommen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, why not? I'm not a big fan of that, but you
Little
know,
by little.
people are. And
There's
Oh,
a
yeah,
marketplace for it.
I have a sous vide.
I know a guy up in White Harbor. Next category in our Tier 2 awards is for Funniest Post. And we have Turnshroud with pomegranates. How do they work? There's a scene in Storm of Swords where Littlefinger and Sansa are eating fruit. And Littlefinger offers Sansa some of his pomegranate, which is ostensibly a callback to the Persephone Greek myth, where she gets dragged down to the underworld and Hades offers her a pomegranate and she eats some of the seeds and then she has to live there for half the year. But Sansa denies the pomegranate, but our poster here has a contention with the way that Peter has described eating the pomegranates. That he loosened the seed with the point of his dagger. Which he says no one uses a knife to remove pomegranate seeds, George. It sounds weird and impractical.
Why would you even do that?
Well, Peter Baelish is weird and unpractical.
And then he brought the seed to his mouth with the knife, which, you know, how do you know how small a pomegranate seed is, George? Do you realize there's a hard bit in there too? And then the last part, he smiled, his thin lips bright red from the pomegranate seeds.
Yeah. How do you fuck up eating a pomegranate that your whole mouth is covered in like the seeds? You pop it in. Yeah, is he just I think he cut his mouth on the dagger is what happened. I mean,
It was too small. The seed was too small, and he just
He's gonna
Like
cut
a
himself.
Joker.
his tongue.
Put a smile on that face, Littlefinger.
I love the image. Yeah.
Okay, but the actual way to eat pomegranate seeds is way less sexy than that.
Was that supposed to be sexy? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
Oh, that's a
like,
bummer.
you know,
Peter Baelish cutting himself on all that edge.
He knows how to. He likes keeping his hands clean. You got to give him that. He says, "Wash your hands after you eat a
That's true. He
pomegranate."
knows what he's
I
talking
mean,
about.
you should do that.
He's
Yeah.
a man who knows how to eat a pomegranate, clearly.
He's eaten many pomegranates,
I
but
don't
Germ
think
has
so.
not.
I bet, I mean, yeah, actually, like, do you think George R. Martin has ever eaten a pomegranate?
Where he was just like writing and was like, pomegranate. Yeah, sure.
Right, like
pomegranate."
he wanted the symbolism of the pomegranate and knew it had seeds that you eat. But like,
Or maybe since he's such a trope breaker, he breaks tropes about eating pomegranates.
Listen,
How to
guys, they're
properly eat a
fantasy
pomegranate.
pomegranates. It doesn't have to be real. It's
that's
fine.
right. The seeds in his pomegranates are actually like the size of strawberries. Why not?
They're Valyrian pomegranates.
yeah.
They're very large.
Yeah.
Can I talk about this comment now?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just refuse to move past
I know.
this post if we don't discuss this comment. I'm sorry. The comment says, from OP is Turn Shroud, says, to me it seems like a culture thing, like how many Americans also don't know how to cut a mango, apparently. Apparently this is a thing, that Americans don't know how to eat mangoes. I'm gonna tell you all about my coworkers once. Where one of my coworkers, he's Latino, his parents own a farm, they sent us a bunch of fruits, which was very nice. There was a lemon the size of my head. I was like, this is incredible, I've never seen a lemon this big. But anyway, they send some mangoes along as well, and turns out my coworkers don't know how to eat a mango, and so what they I guess they didn't know how to cut it either, and he ate the skin of the mango. And
That's so unpleasant.
Wait, did they eat it like an apple? They just bit into it?
I'm unsure.
What did they do?
The skin, though.
What did they do when they got to the core?
I don't know. We were just like, what? So between me, my Indian coworker, because I grew up in a Filipino-American family. I'm Filipina ethnically, and my coworker's Latin American, and we were just like, what? What? You ate the mango skin.
It's funny you say that, because a couple comments down from the mango one is someone who says this comment is from NGP1623, and they say, I used to work at a grocery store and once saw someone weigh an orange, then proceed to stand in the aisle and eat it, peel and all, like an apple. Then they came to the cash register and told us the weight, paid, and left. Which
I also know
the ultimate power move.
I actually have to wash the peels of the oranges that I serve in my house because my son will eat the peels.
Oh
wow. I mean,
I have a friend who does that, and the moment I found that out, I texted him, was like, why do you do this? And he's like, it tastes good. He likes, I guess, how the bitterness contrasts with the sweetness and the acidity in it, but I'm like, and I was like, do you eat the peels of bananas? Do you eat the peels of all these other things? He's like, no, that's disgusting. I was like, okay.
So when my grandfather first came to the United States of America, he had never seen a banana before, and this guy gave him a banana, and he did try to eat it like that. Like he tried to eat he was like 14 or something, but he tried to eat it like a hot dog. Just like taking a banana.
That is actually how
with mustard on
apes eat them. They eat them peel and all. They just sort of bite into them from the side.
Do they
don't
really?
actually peel. Yeah, they don't actually peel them open.
It's incidentally how my son eats hot dogs.
From the
like
side.
a banana.
No,
he peels it.
from the middle.
Oh,
peels the bread off.
Wow.
Right, yeah,
that's a move.
Like you don't start at one end, you just
Yes.
Just right in the middle.
Yes, right in the middle.
like that Twin Peaks scene where they're eating like a baguette with bread on it, and they just bite in the direct center of the baguette.
Oh my god.
No, I've lost.
Oh, that scene was so disturbing,
I've lost
and
all
now
of
I know
you.
why.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't know how to eat a mango. My only experiences with mangoes are in juice and candy. So if you presented one to me, I would be flummoxed.
You have to
But
cut.
would
You
you
have to
know-
cut the two lumpy sides off,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to score it and kind of pop them out of the peel.
Yeah. You don't even have to
All
score
I
it.
heard was eat it like an apple.
Yeah,
They're
well,
diff-
if it's really ripe, you can just pop them out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
It depends on the kind of mango. There are many kinds of mangoes in the world, Just like there are many kinds of people, and many different pomegranate seeds within one pomegranate.
Oh,
Oh wow.
wow,
But let's not poke them with knives.
beautiful.
I got scared off strange fruit after I thought I was eating an orange and it was a grapefruit, and now I'm very careful around fruit.
Oh, I like grapefruit.
Ooh,
Yeah, me too.
That would have been nice. Grapefruit surprise.
It was not a surprise. It was horrible.
Wait,
I don't know.
I was like,
not,
what is this?
I kind of dig that.
Do you not like grapefruits?
No,
Oh,
Oh.
no.
Wow. They're so good, though.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Are they, though?
You've sworn off fruit then? Is that?
Weird fruit.
That's a
Weird
move,
fruit.
too. It's a Tommen-esque move,
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Time for us to all feast upon that.
So our final tier 2 award goes to a best analysis that is not character related. And this was a post that's called The Evolution of Germ's Writing Style Between A Game of Thrones and A Feast for Crows, A Dance with Dragons, and Beyond. And this was done by the user by the name of Dzun, I'm going to go with. Dzon. I don't know, but it's a good collection of letters there. Dzun. Anyway, I really like this post. I thought this was great. It was just I like posts like this a lot, where it talks about Germ's writing style and how it's changed, because it's interesting when you read the books. I mean, especially now, since so many of us, we've done it in quick succession. It's not like you're doing this over time when they were written. And you really do see such a shift in his prose and his style. And that has its, there's pros and cons to that, because like what Dazun here talks about is how in the later books, Germ's gotten more descriptive. It's also, he's built more in terms of, world building and getting down into characters and their thoughts and their histories. But I guess the downside of this is that, A Game of Thrones is such a terse book. It's, it moves very well. You get all the things you need to. And I mean, obviously, like we're seeing with Winds of Winter, Germ's style might be harming the release. It might be holding it up a little bit when it comes down to him. I mean, just look at, for example, what we have so far. There's 2 Ariane chapters, which, while I think they're both great, you could probably fit those down into one if you're really worried about time that much. But one part of this post I really liked a lot too was the part about when he was comparing the deaths of Crescent and Pate, and just kind of how they were both poisoned, but for Pate, it's a little more. I mean, he kind of says it in the post too. It's a little more show don't tell, and it's different how, just to read the passage real quick. For Crescent, it's iron fingers tightened around his neck. But then when you get to Pate, it was halfway down the alley when the cobblestones began to move. The stones are slick and wet. So it's like, his style has definitely changed. And I personally think for the better. But I definitely see the downside of it too. So discuss.
No, I didn't even see this post until it was nominated for Best of. So I'm glad it won. Because, and you picked out my favorite part, too, which is the 2 deaths. Because it is interesting. We have these 2 prologues where, these dudes get poisoned, these maesters get poisoned. But Crescent's is, it feels more direct. Like he's telling us what we're seeing. Whereas with Pate, we're experiencing the things that Pate is experiencing. His legs turn to water, the stones are slick, the cobblestones are moving. It's all kind of very much in his head, as opposed to being kind of outside of Crescent's head a little bit with the camera. And there's some more talk in the post about that point of view camera moving in a little closer in the head, especially with regards to Aaron, the sound of a door opening, the scream of rusted hinge, all that. I thought it was a fantastic post.
Yeah, definitely. More like that.
Yeah, more please.
I especially love the section on Connington and Rhaegar in this,
right.
And the level of self-deception that George has written in, and how even in his own head, Connington's like rewriting what he just thought. He's like, Rhaegar is so wonderful, because he was a great prince, like very quickly like coming back in to convince himself that he wasn't saying what he was really saying. And that level of thought process isn't something we really see in the early books, and it really gives you a lot of look into how Connington thinks about himself, how he thinks about Rhaegar, and where he's going, and that he's extremely capable of self-delusion, very good at convincing himself of things in order to justify things. So as we're looking forward as Connington, as he invades the 7 kingdoms, how he thinks about Rhaegar may be how he justifies doing horrible things across the kingdom in that kind of way. He's very good at separating his goals from what he really thinks. I thought that was an excellent point about him.
Yeah, and it's funny in that section too. He actually Dazan writes like his own version of what the bad version would be of John Connington, which obviously, as they say, this would be very different if George wrote it. But the idea being that it could be a lot more direct, John Connington's internal narrative, with something like, by the end of it, the Mad King was dead, and so was the Silver Prince, whose ghost he loved even till this day. As opposed to showing us, the complicated way John Conn feels about Rhaegar without saying John Conn loved Rhaegar, like without making it that direct. And I do feel like in A Game of Thrones, he would have written something closer to the second, to that alternate version, where we would get something like, John Connington still loved the ghost of his Silver Prince or something very, very straightforward. I mean, it's a good post. Everyone should go read it. It won an award, a well-deserved tier 2 award.
You can find it on the subreddit for A Song of Ice and Fire.
That's right. https://www.reddit.com/r/asoiaf. Well, that brings us to the Tier 3 awards. And these are awards which received, I believe it was Reddit Silver or the equivalent thereof. So these were awards that we wanted to recognize people for, that the community wanted to recognize people for. That some of these awards have never been in the best ofs before. They're new this year. Others have been around for a little while. This one, I believe, was a new one this year, the Manus Award. I don't think we've had that before, have we?
I think that's a new one.
I'm fairly sure it's new. The Manus Award is for not bending the knee. It is the most stubborn defender of their own theory. And incredibly ironically, this was won by user Mithras_Stoneborn for their post, "We should not need Germ's word to call a character righteous." And this is specifically about Stannis and how George R. R. Martin has said, Stannis becomes one of the few characters fully to understand the Wall, which is why, in spite of everything, he is a righteous man.
Where'd you get that audio clip?
I asked the man who was doing the interview, who was actually my father. But Mithras's point was that we don't have to. We shouldn't just accept George R. R. Martin's word on this, that Stannis is a righteous man. That the evidence should be there in the text, and that in fact Mithras believes Stannis is not a righteous man. That he's in fact not righteous, and he got downvoted in the thread. He ate some downvotes for this one. He really took a beating, but came out on top in the end because he won this award for not bending the knee, for being the most confident believer of his own theory. So props to you, Mithras_Stoneborn. Do you guys have anything to add about his assertion about the author, the death of the author, maybe here?
Well, he makes a really good point about how, like, sure, Stannis, he might be the one who's actually seeing the bigger picture when it comes to the war. But one thing we still haven't seen is Stannis will kill Shireen, most likely. And so there's no redeeming himself after that. Like, as great as a character, who knows, like, anything he could do. He could personally go into the heart of winter and, like, piss all over it and stab it.
Sure.
And just like, I don't give a shit, I'm Stannis. But
classic Stannis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it won't change the fact that, he burnt his daughter alive, so
What's the name of his daughter again? Could you say it again for us?
Shireen.
Nice.
No.
I think it's good. I think it's better to say Shireen because then it fits better in the Dolly Parton song.
Shireen.
Wait,
Shireen.
how do you say it?
You know what I'm saying.
Shireen.
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 Shireen. I do sound like I'm, Shireen.
I'm going on down, Shireen.
Yeah, we're gonna get some.
There's a twang to that.
Chinese. We're gonna get some Chinese food at Shireen.
There's a Paul F. Tompkins character he does on his comedy podcasts, who instead of pronouncing the word siren like a police siren, he'll say sirens. That's all I'm hearing now. Well,
Shireen, I'll switch for you.
No. Keep it.
We were just taken aback. I've never heard it said that way before.
Shireen.
That's the way George would probably pronounce it, because like he pronounced Brienne.
Well, that was Roy Dotri's, I think.
Yeah.
But still.
Stannis and Tommen. Yeah.
Shireen.
Dolly Parton.
Shireen.
He says Dothraki, and I'm like, that's wrong, George. I know you wrote this, but
yeah,
you're
Dothraki.
Dothraki.
That's wrong.
That's just dumb. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because this is a post. It got 4 net upvotes, and I guarantee you that was a war of downvotes and upvotes on this thing.
Yes, it was.
But I think this is kind of a fun best of category. I'm warming to it in my cold heart because I think there's a lot of these kind of posts on the subreddit where someone posts something that like maybe a lot of people don't agree with, or maybe is objectively wrong, but that they defend, or that they discuss heavily, and that they are willing to like engage on. I don't know. I'm glad there's a way to recognize someone who sticks to their guns, even to the bitter end, and then some. Just like Stannis himself.
Wow.
Oh my god, he became the thing he hates.
That's right. That's right.
I agree with Mithras in this post. Downvote me all you want. I do have I agree with the general idea that just because George has this idea of righteousness doesn't mean you have to agree with what that means for the character. You're allowed to have your own reaction to a character and their motivations. Like his word on how a character should be perceived is not the end all be all.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I think, we've discussed before probably like the difference between death of the author versus not. And in theory crafting, you can't get rid of the author because literally it's what happens in the story. But you can when it comes to analysis and how you interpret characters. And Ray Bradbury, right? Again, this is the example I always come back to. He thinks Fahrenheit 451 isn't about censorship, but like it is.
Right. Well, yeah, right. It's yeah. Just because the author says something about their story is true doesn't mean it is true. Unless, of course, they're saying that Storm's End is not a spaceship, in which case that is true.
Right. It's a difference.
Well, that would be different. That's a
analysis.
factual part of the story.
Yeah.
Like thematic analysis,
Yes,
understanding a character. Yeah.
Interpretation of a character, what you think of them morally, what do you think of their actions. That's much more death of an author style thing rather than factual things in the story.
How you say his daughter's name?
Yeah, that's
Shireen,
That's
the
death
right
of an
way.
author. Yeah.
Shireen.
George R. R. Martin has, if you will, quite taken himself out of that. He's like, I don't know, say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Karsai.
He's gotten too much crap over it over the years.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't always say things the same way, like, twice.
No,
I've only heard him
I
say-
listened to that when we were at the what's it called, the Fire and Blood reading. He goes back and forth with Aegon and Aegon.
Yeah, and like John Hodgman like even asked about it. He's like, how do we say this? Because like his nickname's Egg, and George just threw out a word and probably didn't stick to it.
I've even heard LML likes thinking of it as Edge On.
Edge on. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, his name was that for a while on Twitter. Yeah.
It's part of a complicated theory,
Oh,
but yes.
okay.
About edging? Oh.
Oh.
Yes. Yes, it is about Edge On.
Wow.
Was that a Waluigi?
No, we're talking about Aegon, aren't we? Yeah. There we go.
Sir Duncan the Tall Award, we've had it for the past few years, and of course it goes to the user who is committed to substantively engaging with other people on the subreddit. All in all, being just a great, awesome user. And this year it has gone to user Elaine Moonstone.
Yay!
So,
I mean, yeah, Elaine Moonstone's great. Like, I've seen them around the
Yeah.
subreddit, and they do substantive. I'm gonna change the way that I pronounce this word. Substantively engage with other people, not only in terms of like talking with them about their stuff, they're pointing other people to resources. Good stuff.
Definitely, yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. They've been like regularly not just posting their own stuff, although actually they have been posting, especially lately as of recording. There's been a couple posts in the last week or two. But in the comments, like hanging out in the comments, which is where the meat of the subreddit is. And it takes a special kind of person to like be in the comments, to be like, engaging, and to not slip into sort of like flame war kind of like, or like quoting each other extensively at each other, like all those kind of things. It takes a true knight. So that is why Elaine Moonstone, I think, rightfully won the Sir Duncan the Tall Award. Because whether or not they have taken the vows of a knight, they are a true knight, sir.
Sir Milady.
Sir Milady.
Elaine Moonstone.
is a broken Moonstone in Elaine?
Did someone say broken man?
In like a basic way, the rules of the subreddit are to encourage you to be like Elaine, basically.
How do we not have a Broken Man award? Throwing that out there.
Next year.
Because we're all the broken men.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
actually, we should. You know what? If the Winds of Winter is not out next year, we are going to have a Broken Man Award for like the person who had the most breakdown this year.
Yeah, the best breakdown this year.
the person
oh my
who-
God.
It's gonna happen during the show.
Completely lost their mind.
Yes.
I still haven't gotten that Wii.
That's true.
So our next award is the Best Critter Post, which is about the natural worlding critters in A Song of Ice and Fire, and it goes to user E space V space A space N, or I guess Evan.
Evan.
That's how you'd normally say it. Evan.
Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah.
There's a lot of silent letters in there.
Uh huh.
It could be Stefan.
You
I
could
think
supposed to be
Estefan.
pronouncing the underscores as well. E underscore.
Yes.
E underscore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's get George R. R. Martin on the phone. Let's figure this out. He knows how to pronounce it. And this is a really incredible project that he's been working on for, it looks like for almost a year now, where he has sought to classify the animals in A Song of Ice and Fire in High Valyrian like they were a real taxonomy. And he's gotten help from David Peterson, who created the High Valyrian and Dothraki languages, and been posting regular updates, and finally posted a final one, and it's really impressive to read through. He gives rationale for how he's coming up with the different names, where they're coming from. One of the funny ones is the Old Man of the River. He calls it Martino Quintrier. These are hard to pronounce, but he gave it Martin because Old Man of the River, giant turtle Martin. You know, it's a lot of really fun stuff like that. You can see George doing this if he had the taxonomy knowledge to figure this out.
This is
Really
another
makes a
one
lot of
that,
sense.
that definitely took a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And
tons of
it's-
work.
And it shows off. It's interesting.
For a while, you start to wonder if this is how much this is real or not, because it really does read like a. He has references.
Right.
He made up his own journal. It looks like to post this on. Or
Oh no,
is
it's,
this?
No.
it's like an unofficial, but it's,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a not peer-reviewed journal of what is it? Journal of Geek Studies. Yeah,
Journal of
yeah.
Of geek studies, that's right.
Can we get someone to peer review this too?
I mean,
Can we start a GoFundMe for that?
is that how like scientific like I
Yeah.
never went past a bachelor's and I never wrote a thesis.
I guess
so-
this is what we're
I
gonna
don't
do.
know.
Well,
Everybody puts up $5. Winner gets a Wii.
we do have an angry biologist on our mod team.
Oh, we
you know.
do.
Ooh.
Oh,
We should have asked them how angry they were about this.
I'm
and
not angry at all.
how biologists they were about this.
Uh.
Most of all.
I like biologist as an emotion.
I'm feeling pretty biologist.
Yeah,
Let's do the
not a
next
lot more
one.
to say about it. It's a really cool resource and an amazing fan creation project.
Definitely.
It is.
The next award is the Citadel Award for Best Researched Theory or Analysis. And it was won by user M Toodles for Sansa and Sandor's real, but still figurative, wedding. The main feature of this post is Sansa and Sandor's real, but still figurative wedding, as the title implies. Some people, Cantus in particular, a user on the sub, has written about when Sansa has her first moonblood and she tries to hide the sheets by burning them, and that there's some blood magic going on, that it was used to summon a hero for herself in the form of Sandor. But M. Toodles elaborates on that, saying that the imagery in those chapters when Sandor sort of, takes Sansa under his wing, that's a figurative wedding, because in the book it says she found his cloak on the floor, twisted up tight, the white wool stained by blood and fire. A chill wind was blowing, banging the shutters. Sansa was cold. She took out the torn cloak and huddled beneath it on the floor, shivering. So obviously, cloaks play a big role in weddings in Westeros. Sansa huddling under his cloak, being protected by that, is a figurative bride's cloak.
So, I mean, I think the reason it won the Citadel one is because there's a bunch of references throughout, too. Like, Cantus, we mentioned, Seventh Queel also, which is a username I feel like we haven't heard in a while. A post from AO Shadow as well. Sorry, well, actually, the post was written by Lady Guinevere, but was linked to our author here by AO Shadow. So, this sort of fandom collaboration element, and it is a very long post. So if you sit down to read this, know you're in for quite a bit. There's a nice summary that's about halfway through it that sums up like most of the cloak imagery. And Sandor being associated with a green cloak, that he like gets bloody, and oh my gosh, all this stuff.
Cloak imagery, tree imagery, vows before trees. The
fake Sansa wedding before a tree with that cloak, like that's tied in as well. Gosh, yeah, it's so thorough. It's such a thorough post.
They really took apart like every little thread possible from the scene.
Every thread?
Yeah.
Thread. Okay. Did they die?
See what I did
thread?
there?
Okay.
I always enjoy these kind of posts because they're taking a concept Martin has put somewhere else in the story and seeing how it fits in different parts and seeing what they can tell us about the characters. Like, one of my favorite examples of this is Jaime on the Iron Throne after Ned comes to see him with his sword across his lap and looking down on him. And in that moment, from a certain cultural perspective in Westeros, Jaime's actually king because he slew the old one. That used to be how it worked. There was no succession. It was basically like strongest guy for themselves. So in that sense, like, Jaime abdicated a throne from that perspective. And it's kind of like this, just different ways of looking at it and taking different cultural understandings from across the continent.
Yeah, for sure. And they do address, M. Toodles does address San shipping in the comments, saying that they are not convinced that Sandor and Sansa will end up together. Their comment reads, "The fact that there exists a figurative symbolic marriage between them doesn't mean they're headed for a literal marriage. Open parentheses, a stop in the bone zone is more likely, for what it's worth." Close paren. But yeah. So for those who are wondering if this is like a San, it's not really a shipping post. It's more analytical, I guess, than trying to reach a conclusion.
And I think something that I like about this is, you were talking about how M. Toodles links a bunch of other people who have done work on this, such as Cantus, Lady Guinevere, Seventh Queel, and M. Toodles, as we pointed out, has done a lot of research in here, but ultimately what they're doing is building on something that other people have done. It's not completely new, but it's their own spin, it's digging deeper into everything, and, like, to be a great contributor in the community, you don't have to just make, like, this completely new thing. Sometimes that leads you astray. So this is exactly what being a community is about. Bringing together a bunch of other people's ideas and building something together.
Amen, sister. Yes.
The real Song of Ice and Fire. Never mind.
Are the friends? Yeah.
The last of our awards, to kind of piggyback off of people who are really contribute a lot to the community, and then how we all are able to use that to kind of craft our own theories, is the Dondarrion Brain Stormlord Award, and this is for kind of the best collaborative effort. And this is going to you, Genghis, I believe is how you pronounce it. And it's a theory really about Littlefinger and Stannis, and how they have their kind of, before the story starts, their little really cool buddy cop story that we don't get to read. And it's so basically the collaboration here comes that Genghis says there are other writers, other Redditors that really helped inspire this, and where he could put his own little spin on it. And so it is very interesting to look at and to think about this potential Stannis and Littlefinger relationship. What was it like? Obviously, Stannis hates Littlefinger, but he was using him for some reason. And did they both get out of it what they wanted? Like, clearly Littlefinger did, because he's just trying to stir shit up anyway. But one thing that this kind of raised a question in my head too is, did Littlefinger kind of predict Stannis's action? Did he think he was going to go storming off, or was he kind of hoping that he would go and tell Robert? So Littlefinger gets to stir the pot. He gets to kind of clear, get the dominoes going. But where did the plan go? Was it foolproof to him? Like, did he expect Stannis to stay and just muck things up further?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic because it's kind of undercovered the stuff that happened before Game of Thrones, I think, in the capital.
Right.
You know, because everything kind of resets and there's this, you know, oh, okay, it doesn't matter. But it's clearly a rich topic, and in the comments, Gangkaus does acknowledge and point out places where they're drawing on other people in the fandom who've written about this, right? Specifically Stephen Atwell and some jagoff named Brynden B. Fish.
Braden, I think it's Braden.
Never heard of him in my life.
Bryden B. Fish, I think is how that's pronounced.
Braden Smith.
Braden Biffush.
Biffush. Yeah. No, that you know that this is that's where we get the. I still don't understand why it's called Dundarian Brainstorm Lord, but I support it as a community effort. That's where we get this sort of collaborative thing.
It's Brainstorm
Lord.
Oh my
Brainstorm
god,
Lord!
Wow.
So you didn't get that?
Did you not
No,
get that?
I did not.
I got
I
that.
legitimately
Brainstorm,
thought it was just
yeah.
someone naming the
Yeah.
award twice.
Yeah, same. I didn't get it. Brainstorm Lord.
Oh my god.
Well, we know who's the smartest ones on the cast.
Wow.
I mean, Waldo Luigi.
That's right. Wow. Oh,
That
wow.
changes everything.
It does.
Does it now make sense? Do you want to re-record?
We gotta do every
Start the
every-
whole podcast over.
Yep.
We're going again, guys.
Just delete the audacity. Let's go. No.
Let's start the whole story over.
Yes.
Delete it, George.
I do enjoy this post and looking at like we were talking about earlier with Brandon, how Littlefinger chooses where information goes carefully, at least in his current at his current age and skill in the Game of Thrones and manipulating people, that telling Stannis was probably to prompt him in a certain way. Where you're pushing out information and what you're expecting is a key part of his strategy, although we do know that sometimes he just does things for the lols, basically.
Right.
Where he's like, I'm just going for chaos. And this would be an extremely chaotic move, so kind of no matter how you slice it, this makes a lot of sense as something for motivations for why Littlefinger would tell Stannis about the bastard children.
It's also interesting, too, because Stannis eventually tries to claim like it was his idea, so we don't know whose idea, like who planted that original seed. Because Stannis tries to be like, oh yeah, I noticed this, totally. But it could have been Littlefinger dropped a little like, wow, you ever seen Robert's Bastard? Looks nothing like them.
Yeah. Right.
Enjoy this pomegranate.
He offers a pomegranate on a dagger to Stannis. Hey, you want to try some pomegranate
By the
seeds?
way, those are bastards.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Just tossing that one out there. Yeah. It's I don't know. Yeah. That maneuvering and sort of pushing people around. It does seem like Littlefinger trying to, like you said, stir the pot. You know, just throw stuff into total chaos so that he can maneuver his way through that. In fact, you know, if you view his sort of goals as destroying Ned, destroying Robert, and like claiming Cat, like, you know, basically, this is a great way to start that process. You bring Robert closer to war. You probably sucker Ned down into coming south somehow. If Robert's like, I'm going to war, I need my northern buddy. You know.
True.
So,
and by telling Stannis he's a general, so if you're telling him information, his reaction is mostly going to be military, not subtle, like if he told Renly. Renly would use that somehow politically.
I wonder if he did tell Renly, because Renly knows. I mean, or it's likely that Renly knew. We don't technically have it confirmed, but like it doesn't make much sense unless he knows. So I wonder if he told both brothers.
Oh, interesting.
And,
to get them to go split off.
See, look, I'm getting my own Dundarian brainstorm lord here.
Yeah. Nominate someone else to write it for you.
There we go. Yep. Because I can
I've heard that works.
hold no titles. Yeah.
Nominate Brynden Beefish somehow.
I think it's a good point, though, that they make at the end of, you know, Littlefinger does a good job pivoting quickly and being like, all right, we're going to poison Jon Arryn now. Though that might have been something that was in the cards from before, but they say from there onwards, things turned out pretty favorably for Littlefinger, from Bran's accident to gaining Ned's trust and Catelyn's arrest of Tyrion and Robert's very timely death and so on. Like, Littlefinger didn't really plan any of that happening.
Nope,
it
right.
goes to show how much, as people have discussed, George is thumbing the scales. I think you've even spoken about this before, Michael. George is thumbing the scales in favor of the antagonists for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And, because, like, things went swimmingly for Littlefinger. Like, goddamn, if you want to talk about him as Genkhouse is in the context of a gambler, like, that is good luck.
It really is. Yeah, I mean, and, like, the worst thing that happens to him, I think, is that he gets faked out by Tyrion in Clash. During, like, and then he sends Mandon Moore to kill Tyrion and gets Harren Hall anyway. I mean, we don't know he's the one who sent Mandon Moore, but... You know, like he probably did. But you know, like he still ends up on top. Like he still ends up getting all these titles and stuff. So yeah, he really hasn't taken much of a hit in terms of his winnings.
Yeah.
Well, I think he took one, at the very least, one very big hit, and we actually haven't seen that emotional impact on him. But maybe we will, maybe we won't. But the prize that he was gambling for, he loses. Because he forgets that the prize actually has her own agency and decides, all right, I will in turn kill Lord Frey's child and, end up dying myself.
It's one of those ways that George tells us sort of like the strategies that he thinks kind of works. He likes Littlefinger's strategy and has it work out a lot because there's no specific steps in place. Whereas if you look at Valyrio,
Wow.
Actually that kind of works. Valyrio. A large part of their downfall is they continually have like these detailed step-by-step plans. This will happen and this will happen and then this will happen. And it never goes the way they want. Whereas Littlefinger just kind of like, hey man, whatever. I'm just going to make stuff happen and take advantage of the results. Whereas where he falls down is where he actually starts moving towards Valyrio style thinking, trying to get Sansa.
Yeah.
Like by actually pinning himself down, he makes his plans start to fall apart.
I would argue that's just like Varys and Illyrio too. Like they do really well up until they are trying to get a Targaryen heir on the throne. But like manipulating people and like selling secrets and things like that, yeah, they're killing it.
Great business.
Yeah, but it's as soon as they get an end goal, like Doran Martell, suddenly they're like, everything's going wrong. Viserys died.
Just swap the genders, it'll all be fine.
Yeah,
keep the plan.
Yep.
This is like a discussion I was having with my friend about his dating life. They're not closers.
It's true, they're not closers.
They are not, are they? I mean, this is a meta commentary because I think George is not a closer either, since the series is still unfinished.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. Hot take.
So you're saying Littlefinger is a gardener?
I'm saying Littlefinger is a gardener, and that he does really well up until he has to go to like a concrete plan, and as soon as he has to hew to that concrete plan, he starts to like lose track of where he's going a little bit. But that if he's given just sort of chaos to thrive in, that's right.
I mean, Littlefinger does literally say, I thought I would have 4 or 5 more years for the seeds that I planted, and everyone knows that's kind of a tip at the whole, like, maybe there was going to be a 5-year gap, but not, so...
Look at these.
This got deep.
Look at these collaborative developments of theories.
Wow.
We all win this award.
This is a community garden. We have a co-op.
Brainstorm Lord.
We are all brainstorm lords today. Well, that is every single good post on the subreddit for the year 2018. You don't have to read any other posts. That's the exhaustive list. No, of course, if you are interested in reading more, you can always look back at older episodes where we've talked about even more posts than these. And you can find those episodes that I just mentioned on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Acast, and always on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Maester Monthly. And as codified in a hidden clause in the 1949 Geneva Conventions, you are bound by human law to smash that MF and like button. I have been Michael, also known as Bookshelfstud.
And I have been Eliana, also known as Glass Table Girl.
And I have been Matt, also known as JoeMagician.
And I have been Fat Walda, also known as Walduigi. Wah!
And I have been Andy, also known as Jones S. Tanai 710, or you can call me Anthony Jones.
Anthony Jones. We'll call you Shireen, I think.
Yeah, Shireen, Anthony Jones, hanging out with Shireen. We're gonna eat some pasta fagioli. It's gonna be great.
Oh,
Wait, you should ask Michael about that.
just got me so. I make pasta fagioli on like a weekly basis. Oh my god.
He's got a whole
You have to
tutorial on it.
You have to ship overnight some to New York.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah.
And doxed yourself.
Put a little bit of Tommen in there.
Oh.
New York, because I have a PO box there. I swear.
Right. Yeah. Because when you go to visit Random House,
elsewhere.
when you fly in from Santa Fe to visit Random
Right.
House, your publisher. Yeah. We all know. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for listening for 2 whole years. Thanks to all the crows on /r/asoiaf who continue to create such great, awesome content. And thank you, of course, to George Roger Martin for writing these books in the first place. Okay. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.